Next, we have the potential add-ons. These cards seem good, but no one can be sure if they will be until they're actually played. First off, we have Banishing Stroke. This is another card that will depend on whether or not Miracle's actually good or not. I mean, playing 6 to Detect Someone's General is going to be good almost always, but even then it's going to be a little bit pricey. Paying 1 to do it is just incredible.
I feel like the thing that's going to help it, even if Miracle's not super busted, is the fact that it's an instant. So I feel like that does make up for the fact that it's 6 mana. Also, like you said, tucking people's generals, tucking really powerful enchantments and artifacts so that they can't be recurred. I feel like it's going to be really good. Next up is Entreat the Angels, and this is another one of the cards from the set that I saw and immediately thought of an older card, in this case Decree of Justice. Now, with Entreat the Angels, basically what you're doing is trading off Decree of Justice's cycling ability for the opportunity to only have to pay X for the Angels instead of double X. So I feel like it's another one of those things that if you have a deck that makes a lot of mana and you have top of the library manipulation and you want to make a lot of tokens, I feel like you might end up wanting to play this over Decree of Justice.
Next, we have Arcane Melee. It is global, unfortunately. It helps everyone on the board, but if you're playing a deck that's committed to playing lots of instances of sorceries, you can take advantage of this card.
That's my only worry about the card, is that it's going to be too balanced. I mean, I'll take 2 mana for Wrath of God any day. Infinite Reflection is really cool. It's a very mirror weave sort of card. There's the obvious drawback of that it's an aura and it's 6 mana, but I saw this and of course the only thing that I thought of right off the bat is that I wanted to put one on Hellcarver Demon and make all my creatures Hellcarver Demon, which is by no means good, but it appeals to my sense of humor.
Yeah, I can see this card doing all kinds of just lulsy stuff. This card's going to be lots of fun. Spirit Away, another steely face card. If you watched the new mod episode, you could see that that deck has a lot of steel face cards, so there's a lot of room in EDH for cards like this, but it does cost 7 in the end, and that can be a big deal.
I feel like we have 2 precedents for this card. We have Volition Reigns at 6 to steal any permanent, but obviously you can't steal someone's creature and make it bigger with more evasion and beat their own face with it. And then we have Yavimaya Embrace at 8, which is obviously too much, so I think we're going to have to see if 7 mana is the magic number between too much to pay for stealing someone's creature, or if it's worth it for the
for the +2/+2 and
yes.
flying, because that is a buff, so that is handy.
Dark Imposter, I saw him and I immediately passed over the cool part of him where he steals other people's abilities and all the potential for combo that has, and I see that he says pay 6 mana to exile target creature, and in black you never get to exile creatures unless it's Ashes to Ashes, and then you can't exile artifact creatures. So I like him honestly just for the removal. It's like having a black duplicate all the time.
Harvester of Souls. This card has potential to draw more cards than Bloodgift Demon, but it's a little bit less reliable because things have to die. You don't get just 1 card every turn, but if you're playing black, it's not that hard to kill stuff. It's not that hard to sacrifice stuff. I think this card has a lot of potential to be insane card draw for black.
Killing Wave is one that Karsten and I both saw, and neither of us really liked it, just because I personally don't like giving people the option to save their creatures from a damnation sort of effect. Because I don't know about you, but I mean, I'll pay 10 to 15 life if I have it for a Sun Titan or a Steel Hellkite or a Grizzlebrand or something powerful enough. And so I feel like it's going to be good, especially for people who can't get a hold of the older, more expensive sweepers, but I don't feel like it's going to be good enough to make the cut in most decks.
I mean, if you just want a lot of damnation effects, sure, throw Killing Wave in there, but this card's only going to be good late game whenever your opponent's down to 15 or 20 life. You're playing this early on whenever they're in their 30s, they're just going to pay the life. Now, against token decks, this card kills token decks like crazy. Next, we have Unhallowed Pact. This card is a really cheap Steely Face card. I'm personally a big fan of Steely Face cards, and so this card just appeals to me. It is a little bit unreliable, but if you can protect the enchantment and kill the creature becomes yours for the rest of the game. It is better in certain situations. Once again, you'll just have to see where it goes.
Next up is Bonfire of the Damned, a card that I probably have an irrational hate for because it's red. I honestly feel like it's too expensive unless you can miracle it, because if you think about it, say you want to deal 4 damage, which, let's be honest, in a game of EDH isn't going to kill much, but 4 damage to target player and each creature they control, you're going to be sinking 9 mana into that without miracle. And I don't feel like putting a card in there just to rely on the miracle is a good idea, because we all know that something's going to happen and you're going to draw cards that you're not expecting to. Even if you're playing mono red and your deck doesn't draw a lot of cards, you're going to draw it off of a Wheel of Fate, or some, jerk, how dare they, is going to have a Howling Mine or something like that.
Red is okay at killing guys individually, but red has a problem killing multiple groups groups of guys. Yeah, there are cards out there that do it, but I think this card is going to be great for those decks that have lots of tokens or have lots of utility dudes. I think this card is something that every person who's playing a red heavy EDH should consider, because I think it's that good. And with the Miracle, it just becomes bonkers. Without the Miracle, I agree that it's hard to cast, but I think even without Miracle, it will find a place.
I feel like I'd rather play Chain Reaction and have a sweeper that I can rely on.
And unfortunately, in red, you don't get very many reliable sweepers. Next is Malignus. He's, in the end, just a beater. We'll see how players like it. He costs 5, so earliest he can hit is turn 3 to turn 5, somewhere around there, depending on what kind of ramp you have.
I feel like relying on other players to give you a good beater is a crime. I think he's bad Sarah Avatar. But there is the thing where, in most games of EDH, he's going to start out life as a 20/20 for 5. But he doesn't have evasion. Rite of Ruin, I think, is really cool. I mean, there's the downside where it's 7 mana, but we're going to forget that it's 7 mana, and say you put artifacts last, most decks are not going to have more than 3 artifacts to sacrifice. So I feel like in red, it does a lot. The only thing that makes me call it a card with potential instead of an obvious include is the fact that it's 7 mana. That's really expensive.
Next we have Zealous Conscripts. I had to glance at this card twice, because the first time I saw it, I just thought, oh, it's another Conquering Massacre, but looked at it again, it steals any permanent. You know, taking someone's sword or something like that can be pretty hilarious.
Taking someone's Planeswalker. Druid's Repository is a card that I personally don't like. First off, it's double green, and it's color fixing with double green. I feel like if a card's going to be color fixing, then I only want to pay 1 green for it.
The decks that get the most value out of are decks that run colors other than green. Decks that are too busy running other spells, so they need something that can keep them ramping.
I think it would be really interesting in Gave token decks, because Gave's kind of mana hungry.
Next we have Reign of Thorns. This can be a blowout in certain situations. This card's almost like a Decimate for green. And yeah, the 6 cost is a downside, so that's where it becomes potential.
I like the fact that it's almost like Decimate, but it's pretty much up to 3, so you don't get the Decimate thing where sometimes I've seen people have to blow up their own stuff just to be able to cast it. So this is going into Azusa for me to playtest, because I think it's going to be really great. Soul of the Harvest, I thought of Regal Force when I saw this card. It's not as good as Regal Force, but I feel like if you're playing a green deck that makes a lot of creatures and you need more draw power, then this is going to be a good option.
Let's not forget to mention it's a 6/6 with trample. Next, we have Moonsilver Spear. 8 total converted mana cost to play and to equip. That's not very good, but producing a 4/4 Angel every time you attack, it's a great token producer.
I'm thinking about trying it out in Kimba. Alright, we have Desolate Lighthouse. I think this would be really juicy in Grixis Reanimator decks.
Yeah, I personally am a big fan of this card. I love looter effects. I was personally a big fan of it. I had to convince her that this card was actually better than Niche, is what you originally said.
I still feel like it's a niche card.
I think it's going to be played in all kinds of decks that can play the colors. Okay.